Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us in the world today. My name is Alex Shikani. I'm the Vice President of Membership and Business Intelligence with the Association for Advancing Automation, and we have a great webinar topic for you today. The topic, automation and the next 5 years. What do you need to know? So you're in the right place. We have a great lineup of executive panelists here for a great engaging discussion, and we will get going here momentarily. Thank you for joining us. As I mentioned, my name is Alex Shikani. I run the membership and business intelligence efforts here at the association. I've included my contact information here. Should you have any questions about this webinar or any of our association activities, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd also like to just briefly say a few words on the association. If you're not familiar with who we are, we represent approximately 1,225 companies in automation markets from across the world. And we have 4 daughter trade associations you can see there: Robotic Industries Association, AIA, the Association for Advancing Vision and Imaging, the Motion Control and Motors Association, and A3 Mexico, our efforts in Mexico. We also have a strong presence and growing presence in AI and smart automation. So if you're interested in any of these markets, I encourage you to check out our association and membership. We also have 2 free events coming up next week. And if you haven't participated yet, these are going to be great events. We've gotten pretty good at the virtual experience for you. A lot of technical experts giving deep dives on key topics in these 2 areas. The first is the MCMA Technical Conference. So if you're in the motion control and motors realm, you're going to find a lot of key deep dives and content Monday and Tuesday of next week, free to attend. And if you're in the vision and imaging industry, or you're using vision and imaging, better yet, check out our International Vision Solutions Conference, November 11 and 12. Which is Wednesday, Thursday of next week. Again, free to attend. And now to our main event. So it's my pleasure to welcome this group of companies to this webinar. I'll introduce our panelists coming up here next. Just a brief overview of these companies. So these companies together represent Teradyne's Industrial Automation Group. And the group includes elements of collaborative and mobile robots, designed to help manufacturers of all sizes improve productivity and lower their costs. AutoGuide Mobile Robots designs, develops, and manufactures high payload industrial autonomous mobile robot solutions for assembly, manufacturing, warehousing, distribution operations from across a multitude of different industries. MiR Mobile Industrial Robots develops and markets the industry's most advanced line of collaborative and safe autonomous mobile robots that quickly, easily, and cost-effectively manage internal logistics, freeing employees for higher value activity. And finally, Universal Robots. They make robot technology accessible to all by developing small, user-friendly, reliably priced, flexible, collaborative robots that are safe to work side by side with people. And it is now my pleasure to introduce the executives who we're going to be talking to today. And I should note that we have a chat feature in GoToWebinar, so please put your questions in chat. They will be filtered to me as your moderator during this discussion, and I'll make sure they get to the panelists in the course of the discussion. If we have time at the end, we'll also dive into a Q&A period. So to introduce our panelists briefly here, first, Rob Sullivan is the president and CEO of AutoGuide Mobile Robots, which is a proven robotics and automation leader with a solid track record of pioneering innovative products. Rob has over 30 years of career advancement in high technology companies, ranging from burgeoning startups to established multinational corporations. He offers a rare combination of business leadership and engineering expertise that resulted in the development and commercialization of numerous cutting-edge products. Soren Nielsen is president of Mobile Industrial Robots. He was appointed president on August 1st of 2020, and in his role, Soren ensures the continuity of the company's strategy, corporate spirit, and vision. This has led MiR to its current market-leading position in the robotics market. So Nielsen first joined MiR as CTO in early 2017 as employee number 50. The company was sold to Teradyne in 2018 for $272 million and now employs 220 people across the world. Our next panelist is Jürgen von Holland, who is president of Universal Robots. And in his role, he is responsible for leading UR through a period of explosive growth and driving the adoption of easy-to-use, safe, and economical cobots across the world. Jürgen has extensive international experience living and working in 8 different countries across Europe, America, Asia, and Africa. He joined Universal Robots in 2016, previously having been executive president of the Engineering Solutions Division, which includes the automation and controls business of Bilfinger in Mannheim, Germany. And finally, Walter Vahey is Executive Vice President of Corporate Development for Teradyne. Prior to his role, he served as President of the System Test Division and as the Vice President and General Manager of the Defense and Aerospace Test and Storage businesses. Walter joined Teradyne in 1986 and has held a variety of roles in engineering, sales, and marketing. Before Teradyne, he was Vice President of Marketing and Business Operations at Imperex, a communications test company, from 2001 to 2004. So first of all, welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being here today. It's great to have you. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you.
So I'm going to bring my screen down. And what we're going to do now is just hopefully the audience can see all of our cameras combined. And I'd like to start, Walter, with you as from a Teradyne seat. I'd like to ask you to just outline your vision and what you've seen in the marketplace to assemble all these companies under your industrial automation group. Maybe talk through the general trends and what's led you to where we are today.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Alex, and excited to be here. So let's see. You know, the markets that we serve, that we've got after, are the manufacturing, logistics, e-commerce, warehousing markets, and these markets all have strong tailwinds that are going to be there for a long time to automate. And as we got into this, we got into it to develop or provide solutions that are easy to use, easy to deploy, collaborative, flexible, and safe around humans, because we think that that's the long-term, multi-decade opportunity to provide automation to these markets. And in terms of our philosophies, we bring these firms in. They're run by good, strong teams. They've innovated in their space. They've won major customers. And so our philosophy is for them to continue to do that, continue to serve their markets, and focus in the areas that they've been strong in.
That's great. Soren, I'd like to go to you next, and kind of building off what Walter said. I'm wondering, obviously these companies all fit together in the puzzle of the strategy, right? Will we see integrated solutions from the three companies? Where are, for example, will Mir sell a robot with an industrial arm from UR on it, something like that? Maybe you could just kick us off and talk about the relationship between the three.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. As Walter said, we are run as individual businesses now, maintaining our own products, trying to make them as easy to use and as possible. And for UR and Mir, as many of you may know, then we don't make the complete product. We make a platform that can be easily integrated with, for UR's point of view, grippers and other things that goes to their arm robot, and for Mir, different top modules through a variety of partners that we have in our ecosystem. It's very easy to integrate the products already as it is, and it would kind of be against our current strategy to start making solutions from combining the two products. But having said that, it's all down to what the customers want. So if opportunities are there, then you might see something like that in the future. There are actually already UR robots mounted on top of Mir, but done by our partners and integrators, not leaving the factory like that.
Gotcha. Rob, Jürgen, anything to add there in terms of what you see the three companies working together in the future? Any opportunities that, from your perspectives, you're looking forward to?
Yeah, from an auto guide Mir, let me give an example of a manufacturing environment where, say you had machine tools and you were dropping off pallets, and you have a Mir robot, and you can interface, you can get into those tight areas, get in there, receive a pallet, say a Mir 1000. The Mir 1000 go into that area, get the pallet, bring it out of that area, and then the auto guide fork truck can go pick that pallet, bring it off, bring it to a one of our tuggers with a train of trailers behind it, where you can do mass hauling, right? So imagine Mir coming out, us picking from there, dropping to the trailers, and then say if there was a 5 trailers with 2 each, there'll be 10 loads we can bring into the say it was a manufacturing site hooked up to a warehouse distribution, we can mass haul those over. So I think probably that's why Teradyne bought us, right? There's if you look at Mir and you look at Auto Guide, there's some great synergies there.
Definitely. So in this, in this COVID-19 environment, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about it a little bit. A lot has changed. We've shifted the association to all virtual events. It's just completely upended the plans as usual for a large degree of this entire industry. My wonder is, and this is to you, Jürgen, so as customers are still looking to automate, maybe they're coming out of it now, maybe things are getting a little bit better and there's more optimism, and we're seeing that in some ways at the association through our statistical efforts. What are you doing differently to connect with them and make sure that they have the resources and the information to be able to successfully deploy in this difficult environment in which we are right now?
Yeah, so I think COVID definitely has thrown us all for a bit of a loop, right? So I think we've been forced into a situation, and I think one thing you have to remember is that if we look at the Universal Robots customer base, we have small customers, medium customers, and large customers. The large customers are pretty independent. They kind of know how to go after things. They can support themselves. They're strong in their engineering competence. But the more you go to the smaller customer, the more they rely on support from ourselves or partners. But it starts with us right at the beginning, because one of the biggest key requirements we still have is awareness, building awareness with small and medium-sized businesses. And go back 1 year, I would say 95% of all our activities were driven with offline events, whether it was fairs or exhibitions. Proof of concepts were always done in production sites, at customer sites. All that has changed in the first quarter of this year, and we're now, I would say, 95, even more % completely digital in all those aspects, right? It's from lead generation to proof of concepts, even launching new technologies or products, completely virtual. So I think from that perspective, it's been one of the key drivers of our business, and internally from a process perspective or go-to-market perspective. But I also think, we've been, the market requires one thing, and that's flexibility. And I think that kind of underlines, almost the specification or the key kind of thing that we're producing from a technology perspective, and that is flexibility, right? So I think, we saw that in the COVID when companies had to very quickly repurpose their production lines. That was a driver for us because it's so simple to use the technology, right? So I think from that perspective, it's been a good move for us anyways, because we feel that digitization was going to be the future. But we also see that the situation with COVID has maybe just underlined the importance of flexibility and business continuity for many, many companies out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's changed a lot. Rob, Soren, anything that you guys, Walter, want to add to that, or how has COVID really changed, or changed strategies from your perspectives?
Well, for us, for Auto Guide, our big initiative this year was going to Europe. We couldn't get over Europe because of COVID, so we actually integrated our product utilizing real world glasses to do that with our integrator. And then one of our end users, we were able to, with that integrator, actually virtually install in Europe. So, we had to do what we had to do, right? We couldn't get people over into Germany, so that helped us. But yeah, using the latest technology like we're doing right now was key for us, and with our customers using Zoom meetings, WebEx, whatever we have to use.
Yeah.
And I think we had last year we built a training center and a demo center here in Odense in Denmark, and it's been virtually empty because nobody was allowed to come here. But that has allowed us to focus a lot more on our virtual MIA Academy, which is a digital learning platform. It was actually launched before COVID, but we can see the interest in that is just many times higher than it was before COVID. And in a way, it's a good thing because it's actually a lot more effective to do it that way, and it has forced us to put more effort into the quality of those virtual trainings, and that is now our prime focus for training our end customers and our partners. So started off as a bad thing, but I think in the long run it will actually be an advantage.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll continue to monitor developments. It's good to hear you're creating new resources, and certainly our thoughts are with everyone who's been affected by COVID, and all the best wishes to our audience and to you all and your families on that. We'll continue to monitor together. That's all we can do, and adapt. So I'd like to transition now a little bit, and I'd like to talk to you, Soren, first on, so in these technology areas, right, we're seeing the emergence of AI solutions. We're seeing more emphasis on connected manufacturing, on smart factories, on a data, collecting data and utilizing it properly to empower systems and make them more capable. Even embedded vision, right? Cameras being embedded in everything, certainly in your solutions, sensors. That was a lot there, but obviously technological advancement is rapidly changing. Could you talk to, from a MIR perspective to start, how do you see these really evolving your solution, and what does it mean for the customers at the end of the day?
Yeah, we are constantly adding different technologies and different algorithms and software into using sensors in a different way, and it all basically has one purpose, and that is to make the robots perform in increasingly more difficult environments. If we look back, let's say 3 years or 5 years from now, the mobile robots required more adaptation from the environment in order to be successful, and we're moving those boundaries all the time, and we're doing it by adding sensors, adding algorithms, adding cameras, and adding a lot of software in order to improve the performance of the product. So what will happen over time is that we will be able to do more and more difficult things with higher density of robots, more difficult traffic situations, increase safety as a consequence of this, drive faster. But it all has that one purpose of making the robots do more and more things in more and more difficult environments.
Yeah, for sure. Walter, if we pull up to the Teradyne level, that same development, what do you see there when you're looking at the landscape? What opportunities do you see?
Look, at that level, there are so many exciting things going on. We're in, I don't even know how you say, early days of AI, machine learning, obviously. The level of connectivity that we're talking about here that'll be even further advanced as 5G gets rolled out. We're absolutely watching that carefully. We're engaged with several universities where there's some really great innovation and research going on. And, there's a lot of very creative innovation in the ecosystem for UR, MIR, and AutoGuide. A lot of the early work in AI machine learning has obviously been in the vision space. MIR has introduced a product in the last year that brings AI into the MIR environment to help navigate in complex environments. And so we're going to see more and more clever applications like that. We will look for problems that customers are trying to solve rather than some specific way to implement a technology for the sake of the technology. We're looking for problems to solve, and I think there are going to be a lot of good applications of AI, machine learning, IoT connectivity, and fast forward a couple of years as broad enterprise 5G deployment happens, we're going to see some very exciting developments.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of complex environments, Rob, warehouses, e-commerce, like everybody's ordering packages, everyone's home. Can you talk just a little bit about the challenges there, how those different technology advances from your perspective are impacting that space? It's often one of the most referenced spaces of huge growth opportunities for these markets.
I'll go off what Soren was saying, in the sensor technology. We started out with, our pallet stacker would pick a pallet off the floor. So we're looking at that. We use sensor technology to understand that. And then if that pallet happens to be off, how do you deal with that? How do you work that from the algorithm standpoint? And then, as you know, we introduced our high bay a couple of months ago. And now that application where we're actually placing or picking the pallets from the racks, we had to bring in a new technology. We took a look at that technology we have and then added another technology onto that, so that such that we could actually see the pallets, see the frame structures of the rack, see the pallets, next to us on that, and determine where we really are in that space and actually go pick that. So in those algorithms, so we look at it as, a stepping stone where we're picking pallets in the application that you've seen our application where we pick a pallet, we bring it over to a conveyor, and then you get over to, picking and placing at high bay pallets. It becomes much more difficult. And the sensor technology that's there, and then sensor fusion of the technology of that information to make the right decisions is really key for us.
Absolutely. Jürgen, anything to add on the warehousing market? I know you guys are focused, you have a lot of different industries that you touch, but specifically in this area of e-commerce, warehousing, and growth there, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think definitely it's a growth industry, right? So I think from that perspective, it's clear. I think from a payload perspective, we're limited in what we can actually do in the warehousing space. But I would say that one of the things, if we look at, simple pick and place, bin picking kind of activities, that's a huge market. And coming back to, technology and the space we play in, I think it was Søren who mentioned that, basically we're building a platform. And the platform is, from my perspective, has in itself a TAM that is so exciting, and we're really at the early stages. But as, affiliated technologies, whether it's end effectors, sensors, as they mature, that TAM will continue to grow and get bigger. And, so whether it's in the warehousing space or in other areas, it's just it's going to be, continued growth. And I think that's really the exciting thing about, working as a platform basically, and allowing that to happen in an open ecosystem.
It is super exciting. I mean, you mentioned applications there, right? So, from a payload perspective, moving, large pallets and everything, but the intricate tasks of assembling orders or assembly applications, for example, in the automotive industry, or electronics for that matter, as robots get more dexterous and grippers evolve, as you touched on, Jürgen, right? So that, from an industry perspective in warehousing, is really interesting. But what if we transition just for a moment to applications? You mentioned a couple, but maybe, Jürgen, we can start with you and then roll backwards through the panel in reverse order. What applications are you really watching as huge growth areas for UR in particular and your partners right now?
Well, I guess one of the things that is interesting is that, if somebody asked me what has driven the success of UR so far, and I had to answer that with one word, it would be the word focus. And like I was saying, right, if you look at the application that's probably the largest by far is really pick and place application. And that's kind of almost industry independent. It's agnostic to the industry. So from that perspective, and I'm also a big fan of keeping the organization focused on that type of applications. But if we were to look at what some of the industries are doing, for example, whether it's automotive and the complex applications they're doing within the production lines, but also, if we look at the industries that have been driven right now through COVID, that were not necessarily the big customers for us in the past, is suddenly we have food and beverage, you have medical, all coming up very quickly in 2020, which have specific applications. But for us, again, it's really the simple pick and place where we want to focus.
Absolutely. Soren, any thoughts on that from a mobile robot perspective? Application?
I think the really interesting point from being a robot manufacturer is that although we see right now that for our products, perhaps electronics and automotive are front runners in adapting to our technology and maturity in and being ready for installing them, then we don't look that much to specific industries. It actually goes across. You need to move stuff everywhere, whether it's in 3PL logistics or general manufacturing or warehouses or whatever. So although we do have an industry segment focus, I don't think that's the interesting point here. The interesting point is that the customer maturity is the important bit. Where are the customers in their journey to adapt our technology? And we are very focused, all of us here, in having products that are easy to get started with. And I think all our products excel in that format where they are very easy to start using. So I think for us, our focus is not to lose that, but keep a low entry barrier for getting started with it, and then maturing our products more and more into to be able to doing more and more difficult things, and that actually goes across industry segments.
Absolutely. It's interesting, both of you, Jürgen and Soren, now have said the word focus a couple times. Jürgen, you said it with regard to picking things or, material handling type things. Soren, you said it with regard to there's a ton that needs to be moved across industries, right? So it sounds like those are unique challenges that a lot of customers face that your companies are focusing on very intently to solve. Rob, based on what I've seen, and you presented at a lot of our recent conferences, it sounds like that's probably a similar type of focus, there's that word again, to your business at AutoGuide, right?
Right. We started off in automotive manufacturing, and then to manufacturing, and then distribution and e-commerce. But if you look at a lot of the use cases, they're very similar. Like bringing mass hauling, like I talked about before, bringing a lot of product from manufacturing, warehousing, or just within manufacturing, or to the manufacturing lines. But what we're seeing right now is from a lot of our customers, the use cases and workflows that we work in right now, there is some similarities between automotive and distribution, for instance. Not quite exactly the same, but how do we're trying every day of bringing in, listening to our customers, bringing in what the needs are and what they want to do in the future or now in the future, and then bringing our technology to meet their needs of today, but also be able to meet their needs of the future, whether they're workflow changes or algorithm changes to other types of things in their factory. So we're very focused on our customers, what we're hearing from our customers, and how does that really drive our roadmap.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. Walter, I'd like to go to you next. So we're going to take an audience question right now, and this is a reminder for anyone watching. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We've heard a lot about technological advancement and everything we've been talking about. This is a question, is there a joint technology development and solution exchange structure between the Teradyne companies, Walter?
Yeah, absolutely. The groups all participate in different levels of each other's roadmap, discussions related to future product requirements, market requirements. So absolutely, we've got a great collaborative environment between the firms, and that's been really positive.
Yeah, that's good. So now I think there's one more question here. I think this is really more maybe more specific to you, Rob, from the audience. It's a go-to-market question on AutoGuide. They're saying, do you work through automation distributors like Mir and you are? This may be a quick one to touch on, but we're in the discussion area. So how do you go to market at AutoGuide, real quick?
So we started out with a straight go to market right to the end user. So we're involved with our end user customers. we've changed our model a bit to bring in integrators, or in some of our integrators could be the leads on it. So we've signed up a number of integrators in North America and in Europe, but in most cases, we're direct with our customers. And even if we have a distributor or an integrator, we'll be direct. Our people will be, with the customers, the end user customers, especially when we want to ensure that, hey, if there's a use case or a workflow that we're doing someplace else, we want to make sure we can apply that properly to our end user, to our customers. So we've got a hybrid model also, but we're very focused on large end users.
Gotcha. So I think now what I'd like to do is talk about when you think of the automation landscape in general, automation is becoming more prolific in manufacturing. Workers are walking through, they're seeing more robots, they're seeing mobile robots now, they're seeing cameras all over the place. Generally, we're becoming more automated. I'd like to start, Jürgen, with you and just talk about some of the ways that you're communicating with your customers. What are the difficulties in that approach? Like, what, obviously for customers, there's going to be more questions. There's more things to consider. How are you tackling that? And what's your approach to, get through to your customers and help them along that path?
Yeah, no, again, the way we look at it from a market perspective is we segment the customer base into the small, medium size, and then medium, large, companies. And I think one of the interesting parts is that those customer groups buy, act, think completely differently. So the smaller it gets, the more emotional the buy is, the more almost consumer-like it becomes. And so that becomes a challenge for a company because, from a marketing perspective, you're trying to, get customers to understand the benefit. But if the benefit is defined differently in customer size, but also geography, you've got to be very specific in that communication. So one of the things we've learned is, the large customer base really understands how to use technology or our technology very, very well. In fact, they pull the technology. We've never really, specifically marketed our technology to a large customer base, but they kind of understood it the day we kind of brought it to market. But the small medium is where we have to spend more time to get the awareness up, but also to understand, how do I get, a collaborative robot into the mind of a owner of a 20-man machine shop, that there's a benefit for that person. And I think that can only be done through very specific application communication. And I think that's kind of one of the challenges we see. But I do believe, we talked about COVID, but I look at this market as that we're still embryonic. We're still at the early stage. I would still say that in the small customer segment that we have, 80% still have not understood the value proposition that collaborative robots could present to them. And I think that's our challenge still, to get that message out there. And that's why we, are indirect. We need our partners out there. And that's how we kind of grow, is that we leverage the capability, the ecosystem to get that, kind of message out there.
Yeah. Soren, Rob, anything to add on that front in terms of what you're seeing as automation becomes more prolific? What are the challenges and ways that you're tackling that for your customers?
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting that being global and having seen how many customers deploy our products, there's a little story that I would like to share. A kind of you could say a thought. What we see, or reflection, what we see is that those of our customers who engage their employees in programming or interfacing with our robots, they have much more success than the ones who introduce the robots as just an increase of efficiency. And we have seen customers who started out where the blue collar workforce was against the robots, and then if they managed to engage them and give them tasks around the robots, then we've had feedback from our customers who are saying, it's completely changed now. They were against it in the beginning, and now they're loving it. And in fact, I can see that I can hold on to the best, the most skilled part of my employees, because they now have a more interesting job than they had before. So I think the whole man-machine interface, and how do we deploy our robots, and how as a production manager or warehouse manager, how do you go about doing that? That's a really interesting area, and we are embryonic, as Jürgen says, on that also. I know there are studies around this, and I think it's really interesting.
So you mentioned human-machine interfaces. I think that I'd like to follow up with you, Rob, on human-machine interface. Obviously, robots and automation are tools for people, as you said, Søren, to give them better jobs, better quality of career, safer jobs, and eliminate the dull, dirty, dangerous, as we've talked about before. What advancements have you seen in human-machine interfaces? What role do you see human-machine interfaces playing to walk down that path and make it easier for people to use the automation?
Yeah, it's much different in manufacturing than it would be in distribution or e-commerce. And the cases, at least we're seeing at the large, payload movement. But those factors, right now, if we want to introduce a system, for instance, we can go in with, and they don't have a hookup to their ERP or WMS system. We could hook it up originally with call boxes or others, or HMIs to actually, do the work. Say you finish off a pallet, you finish off a pallet. You can hit a button and then, okay, we come get it and bring it away. Or if we're interfaced to a cobot that's building a pallet, that would be interfaced right up into the system, right to ShorePath, our software. We execute on the order. Okay, they finished, the cobot finished, we go pick it. And now we're into interfaces to the warehouse management systems, where some of that goes away. The order's done, it automatically happens. The human isn't indicating. They know the load's done, they're working on another one, or the cobot's working another. It happens virtually. So but the human is still in that loop, right? They're building it, or the cobot's building it. But we look at it as kind of like Jürgen was saying, a stepping stone, where you come in, you can put your technology in, you can start small and then work your way up, and you can mimic some of your manual processes you have today and then get to more efficient automated processes.
Yeah. To have an HMI and all that real-time information, you need a good connection. You can't have spotty service or anything like that. We were joking this morning about Wi-Fi and hotspots in our homes so that we had good connection to the audience, right? So that leads me to ask about something we touched on earlier, 5G. And 5G and connectivity solutions are on the cusp of really going wide here. Søren, maybe we could jump to you first on the 5G question. What promise does it hold? Do you think it's more hype than actual, value there in the package, or do you think that there's really going to be good solutions coming forward?
I think it's going to be a game changer, at least for mobile robots. One of the beauties we have today is that we don't demand a lot of infrastructure, so you can get started with one robot, even with no infrastructure of Wi-Fi. But as soon as you add a fleet, you need Wi-Fi. The problem with many Wi-Fi installations at our customers is they're not made for mobility, they're made for stationary things. So a lot of applicational issues come to the surface when you start deploying more and more robots on a Wi-Fi system that wasn't actually tuned for mobility. We're trying to solve that by giving feedback, constant monitoring of, is it Wi-Fi that is a problem, if there is a problem, or is it something else? But with 5G, we get ultra reliable and ultra fast communication. It gives us, from doing nothing else on the robots, it gives us stability. It means we can add more robots. They will be deployed stable without any interruptions. But once more and more of our customers start using 5G, we can start not only using it for stability, we can start taking a lot more advantage of that infrastructure, so that we can start moving safety from an individual robot level into a system level, so that we can start moving processes that is happening today on the robot into the fleet level or into the edge computer level, where there's plenty of computing power. It means we can make the robots smaller. We can make them more intelligent. We can put more AI on them without making them bigger or more expensive. So there are a lot of things that we can do, and I think it is going to be a game changer, at least for mobile robots.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have some more audience questions I'd like to interject right now. First one for you, Jürgen. The question is, do you see interface standards making automation devices interoperable and interchangeable out of the box in the next 5 years?
I think it's a good question, right? So I think one of the things that we see is as markets or industries mature, one of the key drivers for further growth and really from an end user perspective, simplification is standardization on interfaces. So I do think we're going to move that direction. I think it's one of those things where, you know, it's almost the more specific and unique it is. Right now, most companies see that as being almost their IP, but I think in the future, as you are able to see the market as being such a large market, and you know, for us, it's about taking complexity out from the customer's perspective, right? So if we can standardize and be a leader in that area to ensure standardization is going in the right direction, then you know, from our perspective, that's going to be an advantage.
Yeah. Yep. Did you have a follow-up? Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you there.
No, I echo what Jürgen said. I think standardization of interfaces, that's going to be a big difference 5 years from now compared to where we are now.
Yeah.
From an AutoGuide standpoint, we're keeping track of that very closely, and we're all for it also. At the same time, we have to work within the environments our customers have today, right? And you know, because some of these systems they put in are 10 years old or more. Some we're doing PLC handshakes, some we're doing, you know, interface at the upper level. It's, you know, we've got to grow with the customer, right? And be able to adapt, right? And eventually we'll get to there, you know, hopefully it's within 5 years.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. We have a question here that is targeted right in line with what it sounds like your missions are, is to listen to the customer, to make decisions based on what's best for the customer from a business perspective. And this question is pretty much to the whole group. So feel free, anyone, if you want to jump in. The question is, what are specific things you're doing to allow for easier and less expensive changes with new technology? Essentially, why should I be an early adopter and not wait?
Well, you know, one thing that I hear from customers that are early adopters is they look to get value right away. You know, so they'll deploy newer technology in, I'll say, straightforward applications and get value right away. That's the biggest win for them. And then, you know, while they're getting that value, they're learning, and they can advance in the you know, in kind of the maturity curve much more rapidly and be ahead in their industry. It's a really powerful notion. If they don't try to solve world hunger in their first deployment, start at an application where you can get value, learn, and then keep growing. Super powerful way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we like to work with customers. We start with, say, tugging application, right? Get them to utilize the tugging, get their return on investment. And then the next step, you can go with pallet stacking, then high bay, you know, work your way through. And also work your organization and your systems within your company to not only mimic the manual operations, but to get even more efficient and get better return on investment. So I think it's a step, you step with the customer along the way. And I think it's value for us and extreme value for the customer.
Absolutely. I thought that was an interesting question, you know, and so when you talk about that stepwise approach, you find something that can be improved, that can provide ROI, and you move on from there, right, after you've generated that value. You know, we talked the other day about different financing options for customers, right? There's robots as a service out there now, CapEx versus OpEx. Jürgen, maybe we kick this off with you, and then anyone can chime in. What are your views on alternative financing models and the different options that customers have available?
Well, coming back again to my customer segmentation, right? So we relatively early on realized that if we wanted to approach the small customer segment, we would have to look at some kind of financing option that's available to move the CapEx to an OpEx, right? To kind of make it more acceptable. And I think we've got that in place now. So we offer a leasing a package or a product. But the interesting part is that over my 30 years in working life, I have seen the swing from CapEx to OpEx, from OpEx to CapEx, and it goes back and forth, right? So in here, we created a product from our perspective that was very focused on the smaller customer. And in fact, the pull we get is getting right now from the larger customers, right? So it just shows you that flexibility in where you're going and offering a product portfolio, including the financing or leasing option is critical, because you never know what the customer is currently is important to them or driving them, right? So I think from that perspective, we've got that product.
Yeah, anyone else have anything to add to that? Or that was a pretty comprehensive thought, I thought, on that. But it is something that we're going to be following, obviously, as an industry. It's something that we see more. Any kind of options you can provide the customer just in general, I think is probably a good thing. Another question from the audience, we'll go back through maybe Soren and then Rob, you guys can answer this. How do you see the public perspective of automation solutions changing over time? I thought that was kind of an interesting question. Public perspective in the next few years, where do you see that changing?
I think more and more will be embraced, in that if you have warehouses and you can actually, take a look at your workforce and put them on more valuable tasks, and then have even our robot, look at ours. I mean, you look at UR, that's a cobot. People say that's a cobot. But you look at UR mirrors and our robots, they're also cobots. So they're working with people, right, to do the task at hand, right? So I think the acceptance is, as we get more into these facilities to become more comfortable with the operation, get more efficient, it will be better for our end user and their workers.
I think it's interesting how you could say the general opinion about robots is changing. I remember from years back that there were a lot of discussions about, are robots going to take our jobs? And I think we're at a point now where we can safely, with confidence, saying no, they don't. They actually create jobs. They move to more interesting jobs. And I think that you could call it maybe old-fashioned but traditional way of thinking, that it's a robot and it's potentially an enemy, it's potentially dangerous, it's potentially something that will take my job. That it's already changed, and I think the fact that we see robots being deployed all over the world, also in low-cost wage countries, is a testimony to that.
Yeah, we've obviously seen a lot of that at the association level too. Talked about the value of robots and jobs, in Washington and globally. They're better tools for employees at the end of the day, and technology innovation has always changed. So we always like to say, if you don't want to focus on your fears, because you're going to miss the opportunities. So I thought that was interesting as well. So we have one question here about going back to the warehousing market. It's obviously a pretty interesting market for a lot of the people attending here. Will the warehousing market overtake the manufacturing space in terms of robot adoption, in your opinion?
So I think, we're heavily into auto manufacturing, but if I look out a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, with the growth of distribution e-commerce, I believe AutoGuide, that will flip, where we'll be selling more robots into warehousing and e-commerce because of the expansion there of those centers and what they want, to get the product to the customer fast, right, and efficient and accurate. So I think that's where our major growth will be.
for me, it's just a nice supplement. I don't think it will change it, but of course, there will probably be more growth in that than there is in automotive. Automotive is first movers and are really adapting to it now at a higher rate, but it won't take over. I think we'll just get another strong leg to stand on.
Walter, what do you see? An interesting observation. It could be wrong, but tell me if I'm wrong from your perspective. But from a warehousing and distribution market standpoint, it feels like that industry is dominated by some large players, right? Like there's some large end users in the 3PL and warehousing distribution space. Manufacturing to me feels like it's a bit more distributed, maybe a little more fragmented, for lack of a better term. Is that even what you see, machine tool shops, SMEs from a manufacturing perspective? Are there differences in how you approach the markets? Because if that's how you see it?
Well, let's see. There are differences, obviously. There's some obviously very large manufacturers too, so I think it'd be a mistake to characterize that one's larger per se than the other. In the distribution space or e-commerce space, they're obviously, it may be more concentrated. There tend to be more, large integrators will play a big role in those, big deployments, stand up a new distribution center. So the dynamics are a little bit different. I think, to the point the teams have made, many of the product platforms from our standpoint are the same. And we focus on having having platforms that can be applied to multiple industries and have the flexibility to do that, and then support the integrators as they deploy in their applications.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jürgen, we have an audience question here. Even though we have these advancements happening at large organizations, you talked before about segmenting your customer base and the different ways that you approach them. What if a customer is not ready for the AI and automation? What would you advise them?
Yeah, so I think one of the things one thing we've noticed is that most customers who are kind of sitting on the fence, not really bought into the technology or automation, the best way to convince them is by showing them, right? So that's the first part, right? So looking at a proof of concept in their facilities is usually for us the initiator for the actual sale itself. But I would also say that one of the unique things, at least from a Universal Robots perspective, is we're pretty incremental. So when you do a cell and you deploy automation or a cobot in one cell, you're not having to take a huge risk. You're actually just taking one cell. And this incremental automation has many, many benefits, right? It reduces risk. But one thing we were talking about before is, when you deploy a new technology, there is impact on the rest of the organization, and you have to adapt the organization to that. But the best way to do that is not to do it top down. It's actually much, much better to have it be pulled. And so if you incrementally change one cell and you show the benefit to the rest of the staff on the floor, you will see, and that's what we've seen over and over again, is that it gets pulled. People want to have the technology, and that's the best driver for change in any organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have time, I think, here for a couple more questions, and then I have a final thought I'd like you to give your best insight for customers in this area. So this question from the audience: how do you see, how much code, okay, we already covered that one. So actually what I'm gonna do is dive right into our insight question. So with 5 minutes left here, gentlemen, and I think we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of great insights from your own company perspectives as well as the collective. Rob, let's start with you. And I'd like you to give your top insight or recommendation to customers who are in our audience today regarding their automation deployment journey, if you had one top insight.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the customers on the fence right now, determining how to get in. Like Jürgen was just saying, let's start small. We can start at a POC. We can start small, get your your organization and your workers on understanding the technology and then stepping through it. I think that's the number one insight I would have right now to the customers.
Soren?
I don't like just to be an echo of of the other guys, but it is actually the best insight I can give. Maybe elaborating a little bit on it, I would say we see a lot of customers and potential customers who have a lot of ambitions. They have potential of hundreds of robots across their different sites, and the ones that we see that will reach a successful proof of concept and go into real operation mode and start getting a return of investment, they are the ones that start with a realistic small step and learn from there, dedicate a number of resources around this to pick the learning and implement it other place, and then make a plan for how to utilize the potential. Those customers who do that, they are generally more successful with our products than those who come and take too big a step in one go. I mean, we don't say no to selling them, but actually the best insight is start with a small number of robots and really get the learning, and then make your ambitions from there.
Good, Jürgen?
So I think keep it real, keep it simple. And I think that's probably the bottom line is keep it simple. Look at it from an incremental perspective, and learn, right? So I think one of the things, if you're sitting on the fence, you're missing something, right? That's kind of what Walter was referring to earlier on. Jump in, because this technology is not going to go away, and your competition is not down the street anymore. They're global. You need to do something, and this is a kind of an equalizer or a prerequisite for you to equalize your competitive base, right? So I think it's one of the key drivers.
Absolutely. And Walter?
Well, I'm going to just keep reinforcing, I think, the same point. As you look at companies that have been, successful in deployments, they solve a tangible problem, start to get some ROI, and then learn and grow. It's super helpful to have, a partner that has helped others on that journey. And so, the team here has great experience doing that. And we've got great ecosystem partners that can help customers on that journey. And but it's important to get started and learn in advance.
Yeah. Start somewhere, right? I think those are really tangible takeaways from today is locate something where you can get ROI and get started in it. And to end on Walter's point, speaking to all of our listeners here, connection is a very big value in deploying automation. And there's a tremendous amount of experience on this panel that you've heard from today, but they're backed by some really talented teams. If you're looking, you didn't get your question answered today, but you're looking to get in touch with them, please reach out to us. We have a direct line of communication with everyone here and all of their teams. So gentlemen, I want to say thank you for being with us today on this panel. I thought we covered a lot of great ground, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks, everyone.
And so just a few closing notes I did want to touch on. So one of the really exciting new announcements and developments that we're excited to announce at A3 is that on November 19th, we have a webinar featuring Mark Cuban that is going to take place. And we're going to talk about manufacturing the next generation through collaborative automation. And we're going to feature Mark Cuban, Enrico Krog-Iverson from OnRobot, and Rob Goldiz from HiRobotics. Clarissa will be posting a link to this registration page in the chat. So registration is free, and we encourage you to sign up for this. It's always interesting when you have someone at Mark Cuban's stature commenting on our industry and what he sees. So please feel free to join us for that. Just want to mention again that TechCon is next Monday. If you're interested, registration is free, and the International Vision Solutions Conference begins Wednesday. A lot of great speakers and content coming your way for free. Check those out at the link above. And I want to say personally from an association side, thank you. I want to thank again our panelists. I thought this was a great discussion today. Thank you for your support, and thank you for attending. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.